The Black Death. The Black Death was one of the most devastating pandemics in human history, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 75 to 200 million people and peaking in Europe in the years 1346, 1353. The plague is thought to have originated in the arid plains of Central Asia, where it then traveled along the Silk Road, reaching Crimea by 1343. From there, it was most likely carried by oriental rat fleas living on the black rats that were regular passengers on merchant ships. Spreading throughout the Mediterranean and Europe, the Black Death is estimated to have killed 30 to 60% of Europe's total population. In total, the plague may have reduced the world population from an estimated 450 million down to 350 million in the 14th century. The world population as a whole did not recover to pre-plague levels until the 17th century. The plague recurred occasionally in Europe until the 19th century. Contemporary accounts of the plague are often varied or imprecise. The most commonly noted symptom was the appearance of nodules in the groin, the neck and armpits, which used pus and bled when opened. This was followed by acute fever and vomiting of blood. Most victims died 2 to 7 days after initial infection. Freckle-like spots and rashes, which could have been caused by flea bites, were identified as another potential sign of the plague. Medical knowledge had stagnated during the Middle Ages. The most authoritative account at the time came from the medical faculty in Paris in a report to the King of France that blamed the heavens, in the form of a conjunction of 3 planets in 1345 that caused a great pestilence in the air. The importance of hygiene was recognized only in the 19th century. Until then it was common that the streets were filthy, with live animals of all sorts around and human parasites abounding. A transmissible disease will spread easily in such conditions. One development as a result of the Black Death was the establishment of the idea of quarantine in Dubrovnik in 1377 after continuing outbreaks. There are no exact figures for the death toll. The rate varied widely by locality. In urban centers, the greater the population before the outbreak, the longer the duration of the period of abnormal mortality. It killed some 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia. The most widely accepted estimate for the Middle East, including Iraq, Iran, and Syria, during this time, is for a death rate of about a third. The Black Death killed about 40% of Egypt's population. Half of Paris's population of 100,000 people died. In Italy, the population of Florence was reduced from 120,000 inhabitants in 1338 down to 50,000 in 1351. At least 60% of the population of Hamburg and Bremen perished, and a similar percentage of Londoners may have died from the disease as well. While contemporary reports account of mass burial pits being created in response to the large numbers of dead, recent scientific investigations of a burial pit in central London found well-preserved individuals to be buried in isolated, evenly spaced graves, suggesting at least some pre-planning and Christian burials at this time. Before 1350, there were about 170,000 settlements in Germany, and this was reduced by nearly 40,000 by 1450. In 1348, the plague spread so rapidly that before any physicians or government authorities had time to reflect upon its origins, about a third of the European population had already perished. In crowded cities, it was not uncommon for as much as 50% of the population to die. The disease bypassed some areas, and the most isolated areas were less vulnerable to contagion. Monks and priests were especially hard hit since they cared for victims of the Black Death. The first North American plague epidemic was the San Francisco Plague of 1900 to 1904, followed by another outbreak in 1907 to 1908. From 1944 through 1993, 362 cases of human plague were reported in the United States. Approximately 90% occurred in 4 western states: Arizona, California, Colorado, and New Mexico. Modern treatment methods include insecticides, the use of antibiotics, and a plague vaccine. The plague bacterium could develop drug resistance and again become a major health threat. One case of a drug-resistant form of the bacterium was found in Madagascar in 1995. A further outbreak in Madagascar was reported in November 2014.